Hi there. My name is David Batsoffen, and I host a blog called Travel and Things. And I'm doing a series of In Conversation with. And I thought I would go back through a tunnel of time and chat to a man who was instrumental in part of my business life, in a different life, years and years and years ago. And yet, here I find him changed like I have, different career path. He's now the CEO of Ocean Star Sailing Academy. Stuart Loxton, how the bloody hell are you?
I'm all right, David. How are you keeping, brother?
What can I say? We're all in a similar, I was going to say we're all in the same boat, but no, you're in a slightly better boat than I am, I should imagine.
I'm not sure. It's been a little tough recently.
So talk me through it. You and I worked together, was for an insurance company. You then went on to be in banking. What got you from that to this? Was it always a passion?
It's actually a very good question. I still haven't worked out what the answer is. So if you're looking for a definitive answer on what I call the transition from, I reckon, a reasonably successful corporate career in finance to being involved in a small business where you have to do absolutely everything. So,
Oh, pardon me.
bless you,
Yeah,
David.
thank you.
So the PA used to be a person that would help you and do everything for you.
Yeah,
The PA now is personal accountability. It's a slightly different approach to life. And that's what I found out very, very quickly when I kind of moved into small business. But it kind of happened more by default than intent. Yeah, sure, I've always enjoyed being on the water, but being on the sea in a sailing vessel, I've hardly sailed at all. But what happened was that a very dear friend of ours, he ran a sailing school called Ocean Sailing Academy. And he contracted a dreadful form, had a carcinoma, and he died prematurely about 3 or 4 years ago. But he started telling me that why would I not consider, when I sort of started losing traction in the corporate world, because not everybody becomes the CEO. It's
yeah,
also a misnomer. People say, oh, you're a very senior guy, you're running a division, but very few people become the CEO. And the competitive nature of corporate executives in South Africa over the last 15 years has been interesting, to say the least. So I'll give you an example. So the Department of Trade and Industry had mandated people like companies like Standard Bank, Old Mutual, Sanlam, First Rand, all those guys. They had to start transforming their executive and leadership team. And it wasn't a case of changing the nature of the janitor. It started becoming quite a big issue in senior to executive management. And Standard Bank were quite draconian. They made the move, and in fact, in 2008 or 9, I can't remember, but something like, I think there were 12 different directors, were all basically the employment was terminated, and I was part of that whole bunch. So I kind of try to work out what I want to go back into corporate life, knowing what I had just been through. And frankly, going back in corporate life in South Africa for a white 50 or 5-year-old male is just not negotiable. So we had to start working out what would be something that really interesting and different. I tried a few things, and one successful, one not so successful. And then this friend of mine who I told you about, who got very sick and died, he ran the school. He invited me to have a look and see, and I was quite intrigued. And when he passed, suddenly, I kind of thought, well, maybe I should buy that school. And I looked at it. I knew nothing about it. I didn't know how the regulator worked. I literally knew nothing about it. And I had some very nice lawyers in Johannesburg that did a very good due diligence on the industry, how the regulator works, who the Royal Yachting Association is in London, who the local regulator is in South Africa. Is it a business that has integrity, et cetera, et cetera? And I kind of thought, well, sure, I'm quite keen to get into this business. Then we did some financial analyses, and that business, I think, had been stretched a bit far. So usual story, too many overheads, not enough income, and it was a non-starter. So I walked away. I then joined Old Mutual for 5 years, had a wonderful time there, a great bunch of people. And I then started working out of Africa. And, I just thought, do I need to fly to Lagos? And the answer is very easy. The answer is no.
no.
And then what happened was that simultaneously, and I suppose you can blame Universal Energy, call it what you like, but a guy who trained me phoned me and said the other school in the waterfront is now up for grabs because the owner's father is ill. He wants to go back to Canada. Long story short, I looked at it. We did the same due diligence, both financial and actual infrastructural due diligence, and we found the business to be quite strong. And it wasn't big money, and I bought it. And the guy who introduced me to it, he ran it for 6 months, and he stopped paying people. And then I said, well, I'm out of here. I'm done. I'm not going to get involved. And my wife said to me, what else are you going to do? I said, I'm going to phone David Batsoffen every day. I'm going to go to Botswana, have a luxurious lifestyle, taking photographs of spotted felines and just loving life. And I was told not to do that, but go to work. And that's what happened. She said, go to work. So I had to go to the office, and it's been a very, very steep learning curve. There has been some interesting times, but I think the need to reinvent oneself has been incredibly helpful to me. And a lot of my mates say they quite like me now because I was quite an arrogant shit when I was sitting up in Standard Bank in my ivory tower, and wouldn't talk to the minions. And I treated small business owners with some element of contempt that maybe they weren't good enough to be in a corporate life like me.
And now you know what it's like.
I have the utmost respect for anybody who runs and starts a small business anywhere. And I think now one of my little turnaround schemes is that, bank funding of small business, which is a massive impact on our society, both in employment, both in contribution to the fiscus, is just completely underfunded. And it's one of my missions at the moment, David, is to learn what I've taken from I've learned as being a small business, find people with great ideas, mentor them, and support them in things like short-term and medium-term finance from banks to get their businesses going, and just sit with them and guide them and see them to their success. And that kind of has become a very interesting sideshow from actually running my own shop.
So sort of long answer to a very short question. But I seem to remember you, when we worked together all those years ago, you had a speedboat, and then you went into ski boating. And correct me if I'm wrong, Stuart, but did you not, somewhere off the coast of Mozambique some years ago, save some people who were drowning or whose boat had capsized and they were left out at sea, and you and a family member found and rescued them? Am I correct, or am I sort of making this all up as I go along?
No, you just got two stories juxtaposed with the same scenario. The first one was at Cozy Bay.
Okay.
And we went up on a management conference, and those lakes are quite big, and if the wind blows very hard, they can be very rough. And we literally had gone across the lake to the other side to go and look at some forests or whatever. We're coming back, and we saw this guy floating in the water, and we pulled him on board, and he told us that there was a family. There were 12 of them. There were two children. One is about 9 months, the other one is about 2 years old, and teenagers and elderly people. It was a complete disaster. And the police who eventually arrived at Cozy Bay said to us that they were not coming to do a search, they were really coming to do recovery, because the infestation of crocodiles in the southern end of that lake is just unbelievable. And there was nobody else. It was 3:30, 4:15. Nobody knew where they were. They had nobody left on shore. So we managed to get those out the water. And the other one was in Mozambique. When I was out with the family, we went to look for some whale sharks just generally messing around. And there was a person on the beach that waved at us. And there's the old traditional signals, one of those boys, which suggests you must pay attention. And they pointed to where these individuals were. And they were a bunch of divers that'd been in the water for 4 hours already. And so we took the family back, and I went out with my mate, and we pulled all the divers out of the sea. And the scenario there is that they were about 4 or 5 k's offshore. And the current at that particular point up at Tofu, next to Barra, that current then goes out to sea. So they would have never ever have been found. And Mozambique also, it was about like 4 in the afternoon, and there were no boats on the water at that time. And it's also too shallow for major shipping lanes. So the big cargo ships sail about another 20 k's away from the coastline. So they would have been absolutely and completely buggered. They would have died.
Wow. So interesting, sort of an interesting start to your, not quite sailing career, but your time on the water, because I remember going back again to the speedboat and where we worked, you taking us down to the Vaal and teaching some of us to ski. And I remember a very good friend of mine who spent a lot of time on the water, and the next day phoned me in peals of laughter. He said, "You're not going to believe this. I cannot cut the bread. I cannot lift the bread knife. My arms are so sore from skiing." And Stuart Loxton yesterday.
Well, you know, David, you'll know we're a high performance team, you see, so we don't expect people to waver. And you're a man in point. So, you know what? Until you're completely buggered, you haven't tried hard enough. So, come on.
Yeah.
You know?
Train till you throw up. That's what they normally say. If you haven't thrown up, you're not training hard enough. Stuart, so tell me about Ocean Star Sailing Academy. What do you teach? Is there an upper and lower limit? Is there a demographic for people who are doing your course?
Okay. I'll deal with what I call the certification. So we are certified by virtue of our local regulator called SAMSA, the South African Maritime Safety Authority, and South African Sailing. So those are the two local bodies in South Africa that govern how we operate, how we give licenses, and so on. And the other one is the Royal Yachting Association. So the RYA and SAMSA are my two overarching governing bodies, and they will come and inspect our craft. They will inspect our methods of instruction. So we are certified to go from literally zero to hero. So we take people that are going to just do what I call an introductory course on sailing, right up to becoming a yacht master ocean, where they are qualified to have a vessel and to sail it from here to Brazil. So that's the stream around what I call the sailing side. We also do power. So the power boats, we teach the usual, what we call category C or category R qualifications, where a lot of people up on the Highveld, they would get a category R, they can go and operate the Vaal Dam and do what they're going to do. So we do all of that as well. But more importantly, the second stream of what we do is a thing called the Super Yacht Training Academy. So that's what that stands for. So the Super Yacht Training Academy provides young people with a career choice to either post-matric or post-university to go and work on a super yacht in the Mediterranean. Difficult to the States because of visa issues, but we push through probably 150 young people each year. We give them a career package which covers everything from sailing to power to VHF radio to what we call safety at sea, things like marine firefighting, marine first aid, and these are internationally required qualifications to work on any vessel or any boat. And then we support them by introducing them to various crew agencies in Palma and Antibes. And we very recently have opened up in Barcelona. So we prepare the students, we send them on their way, and they get employed on super yachts. And it's a very interesting industry because the number of new boats being launched and delivered in Europe is unbelievable. It's one of the fastest growing industries in the world. And it's quite fascinating how you get a disparity of wealth issue. So when they have, they have more, and they have less, they have less, and more less. So you get this massive divide between the two. And it's not my position to question that. My position is merely to supply the demand for crew from a very professionally run business. So we do a chef career course for galleys, we do a deckhand career course, and we do a stewardess career, and we combine some of them all together. So if there's an affordability, opportunity, and time, they do a chef, stew, deck career all in one, and those kind of people get snapped up very, very quickly into the industry.
Stuart, what is the definition of a super yacht?
Okay, anything over about 30 odd meters is a super yacht, and the classification is not so much on tonnage, but it's on length. And you get cruisers, you get motor cruisers, and that's sort of up to about 30 odd meters. But I think mostly the definition is once you exceed 30 meters, it's now kind of classified as a super yacht. There's also another thing about classified as a super yacht. It's about 20 million euros. That's quite a big thing. In fact, there's a fascinating book that I subscribe to. It's called Boat, just very simply Boat, and that is the leading super yacht industry magazine that gets flight. I think it's once a quarter they produce this thing. And in there, they have various reports on various boat manufacturing companies in Europe and how many boats they're being delivered. And the recent one from November, it was a German boat yard and they had orders coming through and being delivered. So they delivered 26 boats in November of 2019. And they had a few boats that were over 100 meters. And it's in the hundreds of millions of euros. And these things are happening all the time. And their order book, they've got 26 boats or something that's got to be delivered by the end of 2021, brand new ones, all between, say, 50 and 100 meters. And that only represents 2% of the industry.
But Stuart, how many people are meant to be living on this? Is it like a family of 4 type of thing that decide to go and see the world?
What's quite fascinating, if you actually look at the configuration of the boats, even if it's 100 meters, it says guests 12, staff 18. But they have those bigger boats. For instance, an 80-meter boat will have a thing called a chase boat. The chase boat is a 30-meter super yacht. And all they've got is provisions and staff on board. And they will go and check out a marina. They'll go make sure the bookings for the restaurants are sorted. It is really, really over the top, 6-7-star service. It'll blow your mind. And the amount of money that's involved is quite extraordinary. And what is interesting is that a lot of people don't stay in the industry doing that kind of service because it's incredibly emotionally and physically taxing. To be on absolute point all the time, 24/7, when the guests or the owners are on board, is absolutely exhausting. And then the controls from people like, your captain and the chief stewardess and the chief deckhand. These guys have been around for a while, and they give the instruction, but then they can chill. It's the youngsters that got to stand there to point. Don't even fidget. Don't look there. And if there's one little speck on the glass, everybody gets chastised. So it literally is absolute perfection all the time, 24/7 for the period the guests or the owners are on board.
But now I remember standing on a dock in Auckland in New Zealand, and there was one of these super yachts that was being provisioned, and they had, I think it was 2 Rolls Royces parked in the thing. And I got to chatting to the staff who were walking past me with copious quantities of food and a variety of other things. And I said, are the owners on board? And they went, no, what do you mean are the owners on board? We're now sailing from New Zealand to wherever. They will meet us there. They're flying there. They don't stay on board while we go from continent to continent. And then they'll pick us up, let's say, in Sydney, and they'll stay on the boat in Sydney Harbour, maybe do a day trip in and out. And then they fly off. We have to reprovision and go off to the next destination. So what's the big deal of having a yacht if you're not going to have sea days?
You know what? I'll give you an example. So the late Paul Allen from Microsoft fame, he had his boat called Octopussy. And that boat came here into Cape Town. And what it does is, and those guys have been, they tell us, they share what they do. That boat has an international itinerary. It moves all the time. It'll come to Cape Town for 3 weeks. When the 3 weeks are done, it goes to Indochina. When it's finished there, it goes somewhere else, goes across to the Americas, goes to the Caribbean. And that particular crew had been on that boat for 3 years. They saw the owner once in New York for 3 hours.
But now, I mean, it's ridiculous. But what you say, Stuart, is, I think, indicative of a lot of situations where people think the job is easy. And I want to almost liken it to being a field guide in a game reserve, because people think when they see you, you're actually doing work, and when they don't see you, you're doing nothing. You're lazing in your room, or you're having a nap, or something like that. And I should imagine it's the same. They think the same on the ship. They come on, there's somebody to greet them, hand them a welcoming drink, maybe serve them a dinner, and then they don't see them, and they figure that they're just lolling about in their bunks, playing on Facebook or something like that. But as you point out, there's stuff to be cleaned. And on a boat, there is a lot of stuff to be cleaned. A lot.
David, just the polishing. I'll give you an example. So now you have stainless steel and you have wood on these various boats.
Yeah.
And they are pieces of art. But to maintain that at a level that remains a piece of art is a whole new ballgame. So I'll give you an example. If you saw Handy Andy on a super yacht that fired the entire crew, they have a very specific type of non-ammonia based cleaning devices or liquids because of the effect that ammonia would have on some of the material on board the vessel. They literally walk around with earbuds, not for themselves, but every edge, every corner, behind the heads, or toilet, call it what you like, underside of the shower runners, they take these earbuds, and that's the detail and the degree to which they actually prepare and look after these boats. So it's not just the material. And a lot of the guys who haven't been doing it, they get a thing called chamois hand. Because they put on they apply the various liquids, and then they use a chamois to do the polish. And what happens is their hands get full of the oils and stuff that they're working with, and they end up with the most beautiful, soft hands. So you've got this guy, Skulk van der Merwe. He comes from a farm. He's got hands like soup plates. You could like plow just with his fingers. And he was very sweet. He took a picture of his hands. He said, what have you done to me? But that's just indicative of the amount of work and the time that they do go on board. And yes, they do get a bit of short time and have a bit of fun on the various assets on board those vessels. But it's a very, very demanding job, but it's very well paid.
Now,
the youngsters get on there.
Do you teach them how to clean as part of the course, Stuart, to that sort of degree? I thought the white glove test in the army was stringent, but it pales into insignificance next to the earbud test.
Yeah, no, we do it. So in other words, the full deckhand course is obviously what we call external wash and rinse, and the polishing and the how to sand. And mostly the boats have got teak decks, and you've got to treat that stuff like unbelievably. So I'll give you an example. So we paid for a whole series of polishes, probably about 40,000 Rand for about 12 bottles, just for demonstration purposes, because it comes from the States. And if you have a boat called the Luhrs, Luhrs, they will only allow you to use a certain product consistent on them. You're not allowed to bring anything on. And the different types of polishing maker, you just think a white cloth's a good idea, or maybe you can just borrow the dishcloth from the kitchen to go and clean something. No, there are 12 different grades of wiping cloths. A coarse one, right to one that absolutely fine. It looks like, I think it's made out of rabbit hair, because you can't do anything other than what is absolutely perfect for that vessel. So that's the way we teach them here. So when they go overseas, they're already aware and they know exactly what to do in terms of how those boats operate.
And now what happens if you get somebody, they've just come out of school, this is what they want to do, they're prepared to do all the cleaning and that type of stuff. It's hard graft, but they're okay with that. And then you say to them, we're going out into the bay, we're going to run out to Robben Island and back. Oh, and by the way, while we're out there, I want you to climb to the top of the mast and just clean the pulley that's up there, but while we're actually out on the open ocean. A, is that a thing? And B, what happens if, like me, you're afraid of heights?
Yeah, and that's not a big deal. We're not going to be that extreme, Dave, to send you
Okay.
the mast under when you're at sail. For a start, you don't do that kind of thing because it's not necessary. Mostly when you do a top mast inspection, it would be while it's tied up in the marina, and you're not allowed to go up the main mast. If there's anything like 15 to 20 knots of wind, you don't. The pulley stays broken. Wait until those conditions are right. But a lot of the young kids who are not aware of how the sea operates, and we teach them about the sailing side for the language of boating. So, for instance, if a captain says to you, "I want you to take the 50-liter fender to port quarter," you mustn't go, "Huh?" You must know exactly what to do.
Even I know what that is, and I haven't done your course.
Well, David, that's wonderful. I think you should come and instruct. Here you go. So
I can be a niche instructor on 50-liter fenders. That's about it.
Beautiful. We love that. So they do get orientated. So it's the full ambit. So for instance, they've got to do a powerboat course. They've got to do a jet ski course. They've got to do a VHF or a short range certificate radio course. They've got to do all the firefighting stuff. So a lot of people who have come through our program, they say, you're not teaching kids how to go and work on super, you're teaching them life skills.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it's on self-reliance. And what we do here, we've got accommodation on our property. So I sleep up to 26 people. Obviously with COVID-19, it's been compromised a lot, and we're kind of at about a 40 to 50% capacity maximum, just to make sure we're kind of very compliant. But what happens is they start learning what it's like being in confined spaces with people who they don't know. And it starts by them having to make sure that they keep their own workspace, their own bed space tidy, etc. And it's quite a thing. When I get sort of 6 private school people from Johannesburg coming down here, and the little darlings don't know how to use a washing machine. So I have become an expert on washing machine instruction. Tumble dryers, no clue. Some people's one girl, she was very sweet. She put 1 t-shirt, 2 panty, and 2 socks in a 20-liter washing machine for a full cycle for 2.5 hours. Okay, ¿por qué? Okay? So there's a life skill journey that they learn in this place as well. What we've also put in place here, David, is a peer review. And what the students are doing on 2 dimensions, it's relational and task. So what happens is that in order for them to become more self-regulated, there's a self-regulatory tool, and we call it it's an evaluation on those 2 dimensions. And the peer review kind of changes the behavior of the individuals very, very quickly. Because I'm not here all the time to sort of shout at people and push them around. That's just ridiculous. But at the end of each week, we do a review and they rate each other. So you'll get randomly 4 people, and there are 26 different pieces of criteria, of which 13 will be relational issues, and the other 13 will be task issues. How you care about equipment, caring about space. Do you tidy up after yourself? Are you a person that runs down other people? Do you contribute when maybe your job is done? You help the other person finish their job in the relational space. And we give them that feedback. And what is even more extraordinary is I thought that maybe the youngsters would say, no, they're just going to rate everybody 5 and they're wonderful. No, they're not. They're very direct. And I must tell you, when you get a bit of feedback and Joe or Mary or whoever it is comes at the end of the week, we say, listen, can we have a chat to you? So I take the bottom 3 and the top 3. The top 3, we say, listen, you guys are positioning yourselves as the A team. Keep it going because we're going to refer you first to the crew agencies. The bottom 3, we say, listen, maybe we should reconsider this career and say, this is what your buddies are saying about you. And if you continue in this vein, which is all behavioral, it's not psychology, it's just behavior. Yeah. And if you aren't prepared to make the change, you're going to have a very tough time getting work overseas. And when you get work, you're probably going to lose work because you're not even making an effort. And I've had a couple of students that have come to me to say, listen, thanks very much for the honesty that my peer group are now telling me I don't believe this is for me, and they respectfully withdraw from the program. Okay. And that kind of, it just adds value to the rest of the individuals. And then what I do is I send those results with their CVs to the crew agencies. Okay. I've never seen this before.
Because I should imagine, Stuart, that living in cramped quarters, those of us who've done, let's say, an ocean cruise on one of the large liners, and you think it's wonderful, the cabin's very nice, it's got an outside view, if you're lucky, you've got a veranda, and meanwhile, the crew is below the waterline, 6 to a room, and they've got to do everything in there, short of, I think, well, they've got toilets and everything, but bottom line is they have to be able to get on with each other. Otherwise, they forget Murder on the Orient Express. There's going to be mayhem on a cruise ship. And I suppose if you're a single child and you're not used to sharing space, or if you're just somebody who wants their own space, then perhaps, as you point out, this is not the career that they should be choosing to make a living out of. Perhaps they can use it from a recreational point of view. They can drive up and down on the Vaal on something and go skiing on the weekend. But to actually make a career out of it is going to be really, really tough and take a lot of life changes for them.
Yeah, you're right. So what happens is those students that do come through, the qualifications they get, they don't lose. But when it comes to what I call the pre-admission counseling session, we interview everybody. And on quite a few occasions, I've chatted with the parents and say, listen, I really don't think this is something that you should pursue. And, they're kind of grateful because you're being honest about it. Because our reputation is that we like to say is that more than 90% of everybody that comes through the school is employed within 6 weeks of going overseas. Wow. So it is a statistic that we're very proud of. So for a short-term financial gain by taking Johnny's money, knowing in your heart that there's absolutely no ways they're going to be employed, I think that is just wrong fundamentally, and it's immoral. Yeah. And we counsel people away from it. And what happens is by default, when we finish the program, I am very comfortable that virtually every single person that comes through our process will be employable and they will do a great job.
And what about upper and lower levels from an age point of view? Do you have a minimum qualification? And also, if somebody like myself at 60 plus decides that this is a career for me, am I going to be on the bottom 3? And then you go, David, no. Maybe if you earn enough money, you can be an owner, but you're not going to be crew.
That's the point. You're the guy that owns the boat, David. Yeah, so what happens is that obviously the young, energetic, and beautiful are the ones that the super yacht crew are looking for. So at the bottom end level, you know, a post matric that's a mature individual, that's about the minimum we go. But mostly it's people that have started varsity, maybe done 2 years, doesn't really suit them, and they seek out this opportunity. And I also have recently a lot of postgrads, people who've done honors degrees, where maybe they just find that the employment opportunity in South Africa is not as great as it possibly could be for whatever reason. And they're looking to go overseas, earn euros, meet different people, and effectively spread their wings. So it's a big opportunity for people who find that being in South Africa very, very difficult from an employment perspective. So that's a kind of community that's quite busy. And I've had some other interesting ones. We've had a 45-year-old lady who decided that her kids were out of the house and she was vibrant, and she said she wanted to do this all her life, but she couldn't because of circumstances, etc. She came in, she absolutely killed the program. She got on a boat. She was like a very senior person very, very quickly. And that was a lovely story which comes back to us all the time. So to say definitively, is there an age kind of limit? I would say, you know what, unless you really are determined, if you're north of, say, 35, 40, I wouldn't do this. But anything from 18, 19 to like 35 is absolutely fine. There's no problem at all. But in your case, David, we're looking for a guy specifically to go and help clean the bilges underneath the diesel engine. It's quite oily, David, and you have to wear a blue overall with yellow stripes. Are you up for that, mate?
Listen, when you're doing the field guide course, one of the things that you have to do is clean out the fat trap in the kitchen, and forget diesel oil. Fat traps, I think, hands down, is something I photograph people doing it. I'm not doing it myself. Sorry, not for me. But Stuart,
sure.
how long is the course? Is it a whole year? Is it block? Can you sort of do 3 months a year and then go away and come back? How do you work it?
That's a good question. The whole program is modular. So in other words, you don't have to have it like doing it's not a sequential kind of system. If you want to do, say, the marine firefighting, etc., that'll be an 11-day program.
Okay.
Then you can take a break and carry on. Then you can come back and do your VHF radio. It's 1 day. Jet ski is 1 day. Powerboat is 2 days. Your deckhand course is 5 days. A day skipper theory for boating, 5 days. So you can break it into various components throughout the year. And I've had quite a few kids that are doing matric, but they come to me in their holidays. And so they stack. So they start stacking their CV over time.
Yeah.
And if you said, I want to start, normally it's the first Monday in January, and I've planned for this. I want to be working on the boats by February, March. If you do the yacht master career, it's about 2.5 to 3 months. If you're going to do a deckhand career, it's about 2 months. The stewardess is also about 2 months. And that's back to back. It's 8 to 8 every day. And they do get quite exhausted. So it's very, very intense. And what is also interesting is that parents who drop their kids off and say, bye-bye, they come back in 2 months' time and they say, what have you done? There's been a change here. You know, things are working. So we kind of grow them up a little bit. Mm-hmm. And also we treat them like complete adults. This is an adult world. They're adults. If they make mistakes with the law, they're going to get sorted. We have what I call a 3-strike policy here. The first strike is between them and myself. Second strike, I include a few other people, senior people. And then the third strike is mom and dad, and you're done. So we kind of very, very gentle. It's very clear. For me, things like losing your security tag to access the premises is like an absolutely not negotiable, because that is the security and the safety of all of us. And if a youngster says, listen, can I borrow your tag? I've lost mine. That is unacceptable. We've got to delete that tag, close it down, pay a deposit, get another one, and all that. And they kind of work it out very, very well. And we're very lucky to have our new premises in the waterfront. And we've got the big kitchen downstairs that is the galley chef training center. We've got the big accommodation. We've got a very nice galley, a kitchen. And they do their own thing. They team up. They go and buy groceries together. It's the best way of having discount meals, and they share various aspects of it. And it's quite interesting how some people who have never been to what I call bright lights. They come from the farm. Bright lights
Mm.
is the city. How they would be invited and included with the other people who could be a lot more kind of used to big city kind of life. They go to rages and festivals. And some of my young people from the West Coast, they ain't seen no rage. The only rage they've seen is when dad want to murder the dog for biting the cat or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and there's quite an inclusive kind of approach here. And I must say, I'm very proud of the fact that they create a network and they look after each other. And quite a few of them start cross-referring for employment. So the networking opportunity here gets taken. And those kids go overseas. They always, if they get a job, they say, well, are you looking for somebody else? They say, yes, we are. I say, cool, because I've got the right person. And they refer their mates in. So there's like
That's wonderful.
very nice kind of team. And it was an unintended consequence. It's not something we thought of, but it worked out beautifully.
What are you guys doing now with lockdown, Stuart? Are you able to do theory and not practical, or are you able to do practical?
Well, you know, when lockdown happened, the first 21 days, we kind of looked at the business and said, well, let's do absolutely nothing. We had to close up shop by law. Movement was absolutely zero. It's not an essential service, so we were completely compromised. And during that lockdown period, I went to school and I studied an online digital marketing course. Most because I wanted to be able to ask the other guys clever questions. Not that I want to become a digital guy, but I want to ask a question.
Mm.
And the majority of our introductions or leads, David, prospects, comes from our digital marketing platform. So we're very high up in Google rating and all that stuff. So I wanted to know more about it. And towards the end of lockdown, I kind of started working out. And by the way, Zoom was introduced to me, I don't know about you, during lockdown because we wanted to see family members.
Exactly. That's how I found out about it. I didn't know about this platform at all.
Correct. So you got Microsoft Talk, you got all kinds of different programs out there. And we thought, well, hang on a second. If this is something we can use for having 8 family members shouting and screaming on a quiz, can't we deliver some theory on this? And I must say, we got a couple of the guys in, and when level 4 came in, and we trained each other to become reasonably good Zoom practitioners in terms of instruction. So we always have a secondary camera. We use what we call ebooks. So if you're going to demonstrate a passage plan or navigation, there's some very good quality ebooks out there, and you switch across to the ebook. So all your students are looking at a virtual ship going on a passage plan. And actually, that kind of instruction is bloody good. So what's happened, we've run about 15 different courses now, and we do all our short-term, our VHF radio courses on Zoom now. And I must say, the team, the instructors have done an unbelievable job. And I sneak in because I get the call-ins and I go look and see what they're doing. I keep it blank, and my name is Sherlock, so they don't know it's me. So this blank screen comes up, and I can sit and see what's going on in the session. And I must say, I think it's a new generation of theory teaching. I think having to go to a classroom has been thrown out the door. So what I'm doing now is that we're doing probably 80% of the theories on Zoom, or a mechanism as such. They then have to come and do an exam, which is invigilated. We haven't quite cracked the exam thing yet. So we have invigilated exams on site, and all the practical stuff we do, we're just condensing into one big go. So we do a day skip the theory course. There's got to be 3 days of practical. You do the theory, you come here, we'll do 3 days of sailing, 1 day of powerboat, 1 day of jet ski. So we'll just concertina it. And the really cool thing is that we're saving people time because they can concertina their practical stuff in very, very quick, short space of time, get certified, and those qualifications are all valid.
Unlike a pilot, Stuart, where you have to keep your hours up, when it comes to onboard qualifications, are there minimum hours, or once you've got the qualification, that's it for life?
Okay. So there's 2 aspects. So one aspect is your sailing qualification, your boat operator's qualification is for life. It is suggested in the legislation that if you have not been boating for a while, it is reasonable to assume that you will want to get maybe a refresher or instruction, but it's not mandatory like pilots are.
Okay.
What is mandatory are things like your marine first aid, marine firefighting, your personal safety techniques at sea, and that lapses every 5 years. So that's a kind of the minimum requirement to be able to work on boats. That lapses every 5 years. Your seafarer's medical, it's got to be done every single year. But that's largely around operating big vessels and boats. But being an actual skipper with a license, no, once you've got it for life.
Okay. And now I suppose the final question is, how do they get hold of you? People who want to do the course, they watch this video and now they go, oh, maybe that's for me. Maybe not now, but maybe next year when the new normal reappears, whatever the new normal is. How do they find you, Stuart?
Okay. Physically, we're in Cape Town, and we are the only registered or certified training establishment inside the waterfront. So we're right at the V&A Marina, right next to the Cape Grace Hotel. And our our building here is called the Super Yacht Training Academy. And if you just Google any of those Super Yacht Training Academy or Ocean Star Sailing Academy, you'll find us. If you can't find us, I'm going to talk to my guys who are managing the web. Because if you ask anything about yachting in South Africa and the world, we pop up first. So it's Super Yacht Training Academy, Ocean Star Sailing Academy, and we'll send you our brochure where you can look at our website. There's a lot of information there. And if anybody wants a one-to-one chat during lockdown, I've got nothing else to do. Please call.
There
Make
you
the
go.
phone ring.
Stuart, it's been great chatting to you. I've been in conversation with Stuart Loxton, who's the CEO of Ocean Star Sailing Academy. Stuart, thanks once again for taking time to chat, and wish you all the best.
Thank you, David, and I wish you the best as well. And I must say, that beard really does make you look younger every day. And that's a lie.
Thanks, Stuart.